Good evening. Education campaigners in Bristol are demanding Black history is taught in all primary and secondary schools after protests in the city started a national debate over how we remember our past. It comes after the statue of slave trader Edward Colston was recovered from the harbour at dawn today and moved into storage before it's put on display in a museum. Max Walsh has this report.
It happened in the early hours of this morning while most of us were still asleep. And away from the emotion of this weekend's protests, the muddied and damaged remains of Edward Colston's statue was hauled to dry land. The slave trader wrapped in tarpaulin, like a body being taken to its final resting place. One of the protesters responsible for dumping the statue there was Alistair. He says he's proud of the discussion it sparked, despite facing potential prosecution.
It's a symbol of slavery that is stuck up there in the middle of Bristol, and for me that represents rubbing every black person's face in it as they walk past every day. If they're aware of it, they're offended. There's no other outcome from that. If you're not aware of what that represents or the background of the person that is an image of, then you need to educate yourself to see why that is offensive.
What has this world come to? What can we do about it? Take a break and just think, what more could I do to prevent this?
9-year-old Tiana read out her poem during the protests, but she only learned about black history and issues of racism thanks to her family, rather than in school.
I suppose I only learned about all that stuff, I think once or twice from what I can remember. So it wasn't that many times, but it was mostly like just about slavery. It wasn't really about racism.
The whole George Floyd thing at the moment, people just think, oh, it's only in America. Well, it's not. It affects everyone every day, and people just don't realise it. So I think it needs to be taught and spoken about, definitely in schools, because children are the future.
Following this moment, campaigners are now calling on more to be done to teach black history in schools. But Sibu Sisu believes this should go even further. He runs a project in Bristol which helps schools to diversify all core subjects and promote more black role models.
So young people know that not everybody was enslaved, not everybody was a king and queen in Africa. But the way that history is taught, it just provides a very linear perspective of black culture and history. So, yeah, there's a lot more that could be done.
As the statue of Edward Colston now begins its own journey to a museum, it's hoped the legacy of these events could go some way to changing the way we all talk about race.
And Max is live in the centre of Bristol for us tonight. So Max, the debate over Colston's legacy evident all around you there?
Yeah, that's right, Carly. I mean, I'm standing in front of Perrot's Bridge, which is named after a slave. Just up the road, we've got the University of Bristol, many of its buildings funded by slavery and slave traders. And down the road, we have Colston Hall and Colston Tower. The name is everywhere. And in fact, just as we come on air tonight, the actual letters of Colston Tower are starting to be taken down. Such has been the impact of the events over the weekend. With Colston Hall, they've been going through a long process of trying to change that name over the last 3 years, and I'm pleased to say I'm joined by the director there, Phil Carstang. And Phil, it's been a long process, but why has it been important for you to begin to change the name Colston?
Well, it was very important for us to change the name in order for us to be really inclusive and to be part of the change for the city. And so the name, we couldn't have that toxic brand and be really for everybody in the city. So we started the process of changing the name, and we've been on that journey.
It's been an incredibly long process. I mean, many people will say, why haven't things changed sooner in the city? But you are kind of testament to that. It's not been straightforward going through the proper procedures.
Yeah, well, it's about doing it sensitively, consulting widely, consulting communities. We've been in schools talking to young people, and if we think that the name that we end up with is going to be for the next 200 years, then it's really important that it is meaningful and that it's right. And of course, you know, when you start a process, it's not like day one you jump into it. So COVID-19 hit, and that kind of disrupted things. Otherwise we would have been a lot further down the line.
What would you say to people who would potentially accuse you of trying to rewrite history?
No, I think we're writing history, which is very different. I don't think anyone will forget Edward Colston just because the name has changed. No one will forget him. They will just see him in a different light, perhaps. So it's definitely not rewriting.
Phil, we'll have to leave it there. It's important to say that there are prosecutions potentially which will come from this. The Crown Prosecution Service is working with police to see if they will press charges on any of the actions that took place over the weekend. But look, many people I've been speaking to, despite whatever you make of the scenes, whether that be criminal activity or not, they really hope that there will be some lasting good that comes from this.
Max Walsh in Bristol, thank you very much.